Welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Ramya, second year PG Pharmacology. Today our topic is uterine stimulants and uterine relaxants. What are uterine stimulants? Uterine stimulants are also called as oxytocics. These are the substances which stimulate the uterine contractions, that is, they cause the uterine contractions. They are used to minimize the placental blood loss. That is, when a woman is pregnant, they decrease the placental blood loss by causing the contractions of the uterine arteries, the uterine contractions. And they also induce or augment labor. Induce means starting of labor, augment means stopping of labor. And they also induce abortion. In some cases, the fetus inside the uterus may be dead. So in those conditions, these uterine stimulants, they cause the abortion and the expulsion of the dead fetus. Coming to, in these uterine stimulants, we have ergot alkaloids, oxytocin, and prostaglandins. We'll learn about them in detail. Coming to ergot alkaloids. What are ergot alkaloids? These are the plant derivatives. They are obtained from a plant which is called as Claviceps purpura. Claviceps purpura, it is a fungal plant. Ergot is also termed as a treasure house of pharmacology, as they are the most important plants, like histamine form and other forms are also used for preparations of medicines, but most important form is ergot alkaloids. Ergot alkaloids are divided into amino acid alkaloids, amine alkaloids, and semi-synthetic dihydrogenated amino acid alkaloids. In amino acid alkaloids, we have ergotamine, ergosin, and ergotoxin. Ergotoxin, it is a mixture of three alkaloids, that is ergocornin, ergocristin, and ergocryptin. In amine alkaloids, we have ergometrin. Coming to semi-synthetic dihydrogenated amino acid alkaloids, we have dihydroergotamine, DHE, and hydrogen. Hydrogenate is a mixture of dihydroergocornin, dihydroergocristin, and dihydroergocryptin. Coming to pharmacological actions of ergot preparations, that is the actions on various organs of the actions of ergot preparations. On uterus, all the ergot alkaloids, they cause contractions of the smooth muscle of the uterus, that is called as oxytocic action. So oxytocic action is present on uterus, that is they produce contractions of the smooth muscle. So this response, that is the oxytocic action on the uterus, it mainly depends on the alkaloid, that is which alkaloid you are using, either amino acid alkaloid or amine alkaloid or semi-synthetic alkaloid. So it depends on the alkaloid and also the dose which you are giving and the stage of gestation, that is which month, in which month pregnant they are, a woman, and the degree of uterine maturation. So on all these conditions, the oxytocic action of ergot preparations depend. Then the amino acid alkaloids, they elicit a delayed but a powerful response on the uterus. Small doses, they produce increase in the force of contraction with normal relaxation in between the consecutive contraction. That is, you will have a phase of contraction, then a phase of relaxation, then a phase of contraction again. So contraction, relaxation, and contraction. Coming to larger doses, the contractions become more powerful, tetanic, and frequent. That is, the contractions are rapid, fast. As oxytocic, ergometrin has several advantages over ergotamine. Ergometrin is an amine alkaloid, whereas ergotamine is an amino acid alkaloid. So ergometrin has more advantages compared to ergotamine. What are those advantages? Ergometrin, it is effective orally and it elicits a marked contractile response even in small doses. Orally it is effective and it causes more contractile response. And it is devoid, that ergometrin is devoid of adrenergic blocking, vasoconstrictor and emetic activity. It is less toxic. Ergometrin, when compared to oxytocin and other ergot alkaloids, it increases the tone of the cervix, whereas oxytocin decreases the tone of the cervix. Then the frequency of contractions is increased more with ergot alkaloids than with oxytocin. Okay, here he compared even both with even ergot alkaloids with oxytocin also. Coming to vascular actions. Those were the actions on the uterus. Now coming to vascular actions. They possess direct vasoconstrictor effect. Ergotamine, it is the most potent vasoconstrictor, while dihydrogenated amino acid alkaloids, they are powerful alpha adrenergic blocking agents. The main function of dihydrogenated amino acid alkaloids is alpha adrenergic blocking. Coming to DHE, dihydroergotamine, it is, despite being alpha adrenergic blockade, it also produces vasoconstriction. That is, both it shows vasoconstrictor effect and also alpha adrenergic blocking. Ergometrin has no adrenergic blocking activity. Coming to action of ergot alkaloids on gastrointestinal tract. They increase the peristaltic activity of the intestines. They can also potentiate the action of neostigmine in the gut. Coming to pharmacological actions of ergot alkaloids, in this table we'll learn that ergotamine, it causes more powerful uterine contractions, but the contractions are delayed. Coming to alpha adrenergic blocking action, ergotamine has more than ergometrin, whereas DHE has more than ergometrin and ergotamine. Vasoconstriction, ergotamine causes more vasoconstriction compared to ergometrin and DHE. In a similar way, ergotamine and ergometrin has same 5-HT antagonism, whereas DHT, it has less. Coming to absorption, fate and excretion of ergot alkaloids. Ergotamine and dihydrogenated derivatives, they are absorbed from the gut and they have poor bioavailability. Ergometrin and methyl ergometrin, they are absorbed rapidly and completely. Their oxytocic effect is seen within 10 to 15 minutes if it is given orally. If it is given subcutaneously, the effect is seen within 3 to 5 minutes. And if you give IV administration, the effect is seen within 1 to 2 minutes. They are metabolized in the liver and they are eliminated in the urine. The liver damage may enhance the toxicity of the ergot alkaloids. So it is important that you check liver toxicity before giving a ergot alkaloid. Coming to therapeutic uses. Postpartum hemorrhage. I guess you all know what postpartum hemorrhage is. That is, unable to stop the bleeding even after the delivery of the baby. Ergometrin and methyl ergometrin are extremely useful in both prophylaxis and treatment of postpartum hemorrhage. For prophylaxis, they are administered after the expulsion of the placenta. However, IV administration may result in the dangerous hypertension. In abortion, ergometrin may be employed to control bleeding. It is also used in migraine Ergotamine is used to treat acute attacks of migraine. Coming to uterine involution, ergometrin 0.2 mg orally, it is given thrice daily and is employed for 7 days after childbirth. What is uterine involution? Uterine involution is there are certain changes after the woman become certain changes in the uterus after a woman becomes pregnant. After the delivery, the uterus should come back to its normal place and become normal. Like a pregnant uterus is different from a normal human being, normal woman's uterus. So it has to come back from a pregnant uterus to a normal uterus. So that conversion is called as uterine involution. So it takes a lot of time. So uterine involution, ergometrin can be given 0.0 mg orally for 7 days. Although its beneficial effect on the normal process of involution is not established. It is, however, useful in the same dose in cases of delayed involution, where it hastens the same, the process of involution, and it prevents bleeding. And it also checks the spread of infection. Coming to preparations and dosages, if you just remember the preparations, dosages you try to remember, but preparations are more important. Preparations of ergotamine and dihydroergotamine, you can find ergometrin tablet form, dose of 0.5 to 1 mg. Ergometrin maleate injection, which contains 0.5 mg of the drug per ml. Ergotamine tartrate, ergometrin maleate, methyl ergometrin maleate tablet, methyl ergometrin injection, dihydroergotamine mesylate. All these names, if you just remember, that is okay. Coming to adverse reactions of ergot alkaloids. Toxicity of amino acid alkaloids and their dihydrogenated derivatives is mainly due to the vascular actions, which lead to thrombosis and gangrene. That is peripheral. Thrombosis, what happens with thrombosis? There is decreased supply of blood. So this results in gangrene. As we have learned the vascular actions about ergot alkaloids, this adverse reaction is mainly due to the vascular actions of the ergot alkaloids. So good nursing care should be important, if gangrene of any extremity develops. Ergometrin and methyl ergometrin may produce nausea and vomiting, but serious toxic effects are rare. They are used during the first and second stage of labor, may result in death of the fetus in utero, that is inside the utero, and it also may cause the rupture of the uterus. Coming to oxytocin. Oxytocin is a very important. It is a posterior pituitary hormone. So the posterior pituitary extract has two distinct pharmacological active principles, that is vasopressin and oxytocin. Vasopressin, it acts on the kidney and blood vessels, whereas oxytocin, the dominant action is on the uterus and myoepithelium of the mammary gland. Oxytocin and vasopressin, they are synthesized in the hypothalamic nuclei. They are released under a variety of stimuli such as dehydration, hemorrhage, dilatation of the cervix and uterus, and some emotional stimuli. Coming to pharmacological actions of oxytocin on uterus. The oxytocic activity of oxytocin, it varies according to the dose, the species, the stage of the estrous cycle, and according to the stage of gestation. Okay, the effects, they are highly dependent on the presence of estrogen. In the early period of pregnancy in humans, only a very high doses of oxytocin are effective. However, In 5th and 6th month onwards, the sensitivity of the pregnant uterus to oxytocin, it increases rapidly. Oxytocin, it has different actions on small doses and high doses. When IV dose, that is a small dose, is given IV infusion, if you give a IV infusion of small dose of oxytocin, what action it causes? It causes contraction of the fundus, that is upper part of the uterus contracts, and dilatation of the cervix, that is lower part of the uterus. So contraction of the fundus, contraction of the upper part of the uterus, and dilatation of the lower part of the uterus. This causes the expulsion of the fetus from the uterine cavity. Contraction of the upper segment, that is contraction of fundus and dilatation of the cervix. When small doses are given, these actions are caused. When high doses are given, the oxytocin, it increases the tone of the uterus, and the contractions, the rate of the contraction and the frequency also increase. Okay, so it is better used in small doses. Coming to action of oxytocin on mammary gland. The uterus acts on the myoepithelium. This myoepithelium, it surrounds the alveolar ramification of the mammary gland, and it is stimulated by oxytocin, and which results in the expulsion of the milk from lumen and ducts. So this is termed as milk ejection or milk let down. Milk ejection reflex, it is initiated by the stimulus of suckling. When a baby sucks from the nipple, this milk ejection reflex is initiated. This results in the release of oxytocin. Okay. Coming to action of oxytocin on cardiovascular system. In small doses, vasodilator effect is seen by direct relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. Okay. So when vasodilatation occurs, transient hypotension, flushing, which is accompanied by tachycardia, are usually observed. The vasodilator effect of oxytocin can be blocked by small amounts of vasopressin. The hypotensive phase is followed by a rise in BP, probably due to an increase in the cardiac output. Coming to its action on kidney, synthetic oxytocin, it possesses antidiuretic activity in a man. So a dose of 100 milliunits causes definite antidiuresis in postpartum women. This is also associated with a decrease in renal plasma flow and GFR. The renal effects of oxytocin may be due to the constriction of renal cortical vessels. Coming to miscellaneous actions of oxytocin, it is a bonding hormone. This effect is observed during lovemaking and on the battlefield. Coming to the absorption, fate, and excretion of oxytocin. It can be, when it is given intramuscularly, it is absorbed rapidly. So the T-half of a non-pregnant woman is 10 to 15 minutes. Excretion from the circulation is mainly by kidneys and from the liver. The plasma, the uterine tissue, and the placenta in a pregnant woman contain an enzyme termed oxytocinase, which inactivates oxytocin. So the T-half of oxytocin in a pregnant woman at term is approximately 3 minutes. Coming to therapeutic uses of oxytocin. Induction and augmentation of term labor. For the induction of labor, that is for the starting of labor. Oxytocin, it is administered by IV infusion. 5 units in 500 ml of 5% dextrose solution. During the whole procedure, the uterine response must be monitored and the dose must be regulated by monitoring the fetal heart rate. Okay, you have to be very careful. This is an important note for the nurses. So 5 units in 500 ml of 5% dextrose solution. So when this infusion is given, during the whole process, you have to observe the fetal heart rate and also the vitals of the pregnant woman. Multiparous patients, malpresentations or complete placenta previa. Multiparous means if they have more than 3 children or 4 children, if this is the 4th pregnancy. Malpresentation, instead of head of the fetus, if there is breech presentation or shoulder presentation or any other presentation near the cervix, that is called as malpresentation, or complete placenta previa, that is placenta is opening into the cervix. And those with uterine scars, previously if they have any scars over the uterine, they should not receive oxytocin for induction because this may cause the uterine rupture. Oxytocin, it can also be used in postpartum hemorrhage. Postpartum hemorrhage is a major cause of morbidity and mortality, particularly in developing countries. Oxytocin, it can be administered 5 to 10 units IV intravenous after the delivery of the placenta to produce a firm contraction of the uterus and prevent postpartum hemorrhage. The same dose may also be injected directly into the uterus after delivering the fetus by cesarean section. So you can use this to prevent postpartum hemorrhage even in a normal labor after the delivery of placenta, and even it can be injected directly into the uterus after the cesarean section. For treatment of postpartum hemorrhage, a dose of 20 to 40 units in 1 liter of 5% dextrose is preferred. It can also be given alternatively in the form of intramuscular injection. Coming to hypotonic uterine dysfunction. Oxytocin is occasionally employed to initiate uterine contractions in prolonged, stubborn and hypotonic uterine inertia. Coming to miscellaneous uses, oxytocin, it can be given intranasally in the nose of 40 to 40 units for 2 to 5 minutes before breastfeeding. This promotes milk ejection during lactation in nursing mothers. It is often used in veterinary practices to increase the milk yield. Coming to preparation and dosages of oxytocin. Oxytocin injection, it contains 10 units of synthetic oxytocin per ml. Oxytocin nasal spray 40 units per ml. It facilitates breastfeeding and it is used 2 to 5 minutes before breastfeed. Coming to adverse reactions of oxytocin. Oxytocin, it can be given by IV infusion and it may cause water retention leading to water intoxication. It also results in nausea, vomiting, anorexia, weight gain and lethargy. Injurious use of oxytocin during labor may result in premature birth, fetal death, too rapid delivery or a uterine rupture. Oxytocin is no more employed to induce a therapeutic abortion. Coming to the last, prostaglandins in uterine stimulants. Prostaglandins, they are found in the ovary, myometrium and menstrual fluid. PGF2 and PGE, they stimulate the tone as well as the uterine contractions frequency when they are given in low doses. 4 prostaglandins, they have been isolated from human amniotic fluid which are obtained during normal labor and during spontaneous abortions also. Since PGF2 has smooth muscle stimulating action, it is possible that it participates in the process of labor. Prostaglandins are most effective in second trimester, that is from 13th to 20th weeks of gestation. During pregnancy, prostaglandins acts in at least 3 different ways, that is as uterine smooth muscle stimulant, as cervical primers, as luteolytic agents. As uterine smooth muscle stimulates, they cause the contraction of the uterus. As cervical primers, they fasten the process of softening and dilatation of the cervix. Sometimes it is preferred as cervical ripening. Prostaglandins are used for cervical priming at the time of delivery and before inducing abortion. As a luteolytic agent, they inhibit the secretion of progesterone by corpus luteum. This effect it is not observed in humans. Coming to therapeutic uses of prostaglandins, they help in therapeutic abortion, but oxytocin is not used nowadays. As I have told, oxytocin nowadays is not used for therapeutic abortions. Prostaglandins are used for therapeutic abortions, cervical priming, postpartum hemorrhage, induction and augmentation of term labor, medical termination of pregnancy. Prostaglandins are now widely used to terminate the pregnancy in the second trimester. Gemiprost, it is administered vaginally as pessaries, is the preferred prostaglandin for this purpose, that is for medical termination in second trimester. Oral or intravaginal misoprostol may be used. They are combined with mifepristone. Coming to preparations and dosages of prostaglandins: dinoprost, dinoproston, carboprost, dinoprostone, and misoprostol. Dinoprost 5 mg for amniotic use to induce abortion. Dinoproston oral or intravaginal use for induction of labor. Carboprost it acts for a longer duration of action when given intramuscularly. Dinoproston 0.5 mg per syringe for endocervical injection for cervical ripening. It also has diuretic action. Coming to misoprostol, it is used orally or intravaginally to bring out medical abortion. The intravaginal administration is also used to cause cervical dilatation. Coming to adverse effects of prostaglandins. In smaller doses, they have no effect, no adverse effects, but in larger doses, they have adverse effects which include nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, headache, diarrhea, fever, and vasodilation. They should be given cautiously when there is high intraocular pressure, hypertension, diabetes, angina, or epilepsy. They are completely contraindicated if there is any cardiac, renal, or pulmonary or hepatic disease. Smoking and alcohol should be avoided during the use of prostaglandins for about 48 hours. Coming to our next topic in this class, that is uterine relaxants. Uterine relaxants, they are also called as tocolytics. Tocolytics, they are the drugs which inhibit the myometrial contractions. Oxytocics, they cause the contractions of the uterus, whereas tocolytics, they inhibit the myometrial contractions, that is uterine contractions. They are used to prevent spontaneous preterm births. The major goal in preventing a preterm birth is to eliminate the risk of neonatal complications and death. Since the contracting uterus is most commonly recognized mechanism, stopping the contractions by using these tocolytics, it is the major therapeutic approach. Coming to the classification of tocolytics. In this, we have calcium channel blockers such as nifedipine, Cyclooxygenase inhibitors, COX inhibitors such as indomethacin, beta-2 adrenergic agonists like ritodrin, salbutamol, terbutaline, oxytocin receptor antagonists such as atosiban and magnesium sulfate, then nitric oxide donors such as nitroglycerin. Coming to calcium channel blockers, nifedipine, it is administered sublingually. That is, you can put this tablet under the tongue. It can also be given orally in a loading dose of 10 mg and the dose repeated every 20 minutes for 3 doses. Maintenance dose of 10 mg may be given orally every 4 to 6 hours. It is effective in reducing neonatal complications and is relatively safe. It can be used at any gestational age. Coming to COX inhibitors, human decidua, myometrium and fetal membranes, they express, that is, they have COX-1 enzyme. So during labor, there is a dramatic increase in COX-2 in the decidua and myometrium. This COX inhibitor, that is indomethacin, if it is given orally, it inhibits COX non-selectively and hence prostaglandin synthesis and acts as a tocolytic. It is avoided in gestation more than 32 weeks to prevent the uteroclosure or narrowing of the ductus arteriosus in the fetus. Coming to beta adrenergic receptor agonists. These drugs, they can be used as alternative to nifedipine and indomethacin. Although they delay preterm delivery for 24 to 72 hours and reduce immediate risk, a significant reduction in perinatal morbidity and mortality has not been convincingly demonstrated. They delay 24 to 72 hours, but decrease in perinatal morbidity and mortality is not observed. Salbutamol, terbutaline and ritodrin, these are selective beta-2 agonists. They have been used to delay preterm delivery in uncomplicated labor. They are contraindicated in preeclampsia. Coming to salbutamol, this is used by IV infusion in the dose of 10 mcg micrograms per unit, which gradually increased to 45 micrograms per minute until contractions cease, that is contractions stop, then the dose is reduced gradually. First you are increasing from 10 to 45, then you can decrease when the contractions stop. It can also be given intramuscularly. The adverse reactions include nausea, vomiting, tremors, tachycardia, hypokalemia, pulmonary edema, increased tendency to uterine bleeding and hyperglycemia. Coming to ritodrin, it is used as IV infusion in the dose of 50 micrograms per minute and increased by the same amount every 20 minutes until the uterine contractions are controlled and then maintained for an hour. Coming to nitric oxide donor, nitroglycerin IV infusion can delay preterm labor for about 48 hours. Transdermal nitroglycerin can prolong gestation to 37 weeks. Oxytocin receptor antagonist, atosiban, it acts as a competitive antagonist of oxytocin. It is associated with excess fetal and infant mortality when used before 28 weeks of gestation. Hence, it is no more used. Coming to magnesium sulfate, although experimentally, magnesium sulfate, it inhibits the contraction of myometrial strips obtained from a pregnant woman. Clinically, it showed no benefit as a tocolytic over a placebo. Tocolytics may not always prevent preterm birth. There is no first line ideal tocolytic. when a delay of 24 to 48 hours in a labor, it by these tocolytics, it can be utilized. That is, this delay of 24 to 48 hours can be utilized for administration of a glucocorticoid, that is a betamethasone or a dexamethasone. These drugs, these glucocorticoids, they bring about the maturation of the fetal lungs and they decrease the neonatal respiratory distress syndrome. And the other condition where you can utilize this is to transfer the patient from a center to a center where a neonatal ICU is available. Ideally, tocolytics should not be given for more than 48 hours and treatment should be individualized. Coming to nursing care, it is important to establish a clear baseline of vital signs before a woman is given uterine stimulant or a relaxant. Documentation of vital signs, they permit the faster recognition of any abnormal change in a woman's condition. So you have to note down all the vitals like BP, pulse rate, ECG and other vitals, respiratory rate, you have to note down. So any abnormal change, if you see, you can immediately inform it to the doctor. Frequent fetal heart rate should be monitored. That is, fetal heart rate should be monitored. If any adverse reactions are observed with these uterine stimulants or uterine relaxants, you have to immediately inform it to the doctor. So this is our class about uterine stimulants and uterine relaxants. Thank you.